Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Vicente.
And this is Izzy.
And welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do our spoiler-free / spoiler review of Evil Dead Rise. Now, in a little bit, I'm going to start a countdown. For the first 6 minutes, it'll be entirely spoiler-free. So others that want to listen to our spoiler-free opinions can do so without getting spoiled. So I'm going to start it off. And 3, 2, 1. And now, spoiler-free time. Izzy, you want to give thoughts?
So my thoughts as being someone new to the Evil Dead franchise, I really enjoyed this movie. It was very disturbing and gory, which fits with the other Evil Dead movies. Definitely not as comical as the originals, but when you're looking at the 2013 version, it pairs up pretty well with that one.
Oh yeah, I would say for this movie, I enjoyed it a lot more than the 2013 version of Evil Dead, which was a requel. But holy crap. People kept saying that this movie was going to give you nightmares and was disturbing and very bloody and gory. And for someone who doesn't really believe in a lot of hype, just because like I've seen people say, oh, this is the scariest or this is the bloodiest, for a lot of horror movies. And then when I go see them, I'm just like, the only time I got proven wrong was when we went to go see Scream 6. But holy crap. This movie was balls to the wall. It was carnage candy. Now, I'm not going to spoil exactly how, but I was getting a little terrified at some points.
Yeah, it definitely did not disappoint if you're into the whole gore part of the horror genre.
Yeah, and just seeing the deadites and everything, just like, it's so creepy. Like, they do it so well. It reminds me of, like, a lot of possession movies, just body horror when their bodies are, like, doing these weird angles, and the kills in this movie are brutal. This movie's mean as hell.
Yeah, it is.
It does not give any fucks, and we'll get to that when we do our spoiler review in a couple of minutes. But those that are just listening right now that's seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. People are getting effed up left and right. It was really good. Like, with I like this movie better than Renfield, because with Renfield, I didn't really have that much of expectations, but with Evil Dead, I wouldn't say I had high expectations, but for a franchise like this that's very consistent, like the Scream franchise, I did have like a little bit higher than expectations than normal when it comes to a horror movie. But this movie didn't disappoint. The cast is great, everyone's doing a good job, and like I said, this movie surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah, this movie was one to definitely remember and not forget.
Yeah, when people say this movie will disturb you and give you nightmares, they are not lying.
Yeah.
And I like everything about this movie. I do have some cons about it, which I'll get to in my negatives and stuff. Izzy, you want to add anything else to this?
I just want to say, if you've watched the trailer and you see how terrifying the trailer is, just put your expectations. You trust me, you think the trailer's good, just wait till you watch it.
Yeah, and we'll get a little bit more into our positive when it comes to the marketing of this movie. But yeah, it's very good. And for this movie to like okay, I almost just spoiled it right now. And I think Sam Raimi even gave his blessing to this movie, and that's always good. And then a little fun fact about this franchise is that when Sam Raimi was creating the first Evil Dead, the studio didn't give him shit. Like, this man was paying out of his own pocket, essentially. The first Evil Dead is considered an indie, small horror movie, which is ironic when you see how big this franchise is with the sequels it has, and even the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show. It's just amazing to see how it was considered just such a small film back then, and to one of the mainstream horror movies today.
Well, I mean, but also it's kind of off topic, but look at the Saw franchise. That started out as a small time film too.
Yeah, but you see, at least with Saw, I think they had a little bit more faith in Saw than they did even Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And another cool fact about the Evil Dead franchise is that Evil Dead 2 is actually considered a requel in its own way, because New Line Cinema was kind of being a bitch to Sam Raimi and didn't want to give him the rights to his own characters and own movie, even though he's the one that came up with the idea, him and Bruce Campbell. And so, yeah, Evil Dead 2, it's a requel, but honestly, all these movies are connected. Even the 2013 version is connected to these other movies, because the Necronomicon book can influence reality and stuff like that, and make certain events happen again, but just with different people.
Yeah, which is something that first, as me new to the franchise, it took me a minute to get, but like now that I've watched a few of the movies and like kind of like processed this this franchise, I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and as someone I'm a casual fan of Evil Dead. I only like it just because I'm a huge Bruce Campbell fan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this movie does a really good job of holding its own. Even though it's a requel, it does a really good job of carrying the legacy, and just even this new cast of characters I thoroughly enjoy. I thought they held up pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Question for you: do you think viewers need to watch the older Evil Dead movies to understand this movie?
I would say no. You don't need to. I mean, for little callbacks and Easter eggs, yeah, sure, go ahead. Because I did notice some callbacks, with certain like book pages, which we're not going to talk about. We'll talk about some spoilers in about 25 seconds from now. Yeah, 25 seconds from now. So yeah, last thoughts for me for this movie. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. It was really good. It was good. Granted, I do have some like 3 minor issues with this movie, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Izzy, you want to give a rating for this movie?
For me, I give this movie a solid 9. I think it did a terrific job with the genre and just the franchise itself. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and it's something. They did a good job. Like I said, it exceeded my expectations. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the first 6 minutes spoiler-free talk is up. So in 3. Okay, so now we're going to talk spoilers now. Okay, I'll start over again with the countdown. So in 3, 2, 1. Now, for those that are joining us after seeing the movie or have already seen the movie, now we're going to talk about spoilers. Holy shit.
Oh my God.
I did not think this movie would have the balls to kill off kids.
Neither did I. That was probably one of the most crazy things, especially after just watching the trailers. You think, okay, maybe they're going to focus on the mom, but no.
No, like people, there's so many cool shots in this movie, which we'll talk about in our positive, mixed, and negatives. But this movie was bloody as fuck. Yeah. That mom was terrifying. She was just killing like neighbors left and right, whether it was ripping out eyeballs or just biting people's throats out. It was holy crap. Mm-hmm. And now I want to know how do people feel about Ash Williams not being in this movie? Because Bruce Campbell was in this movie. It was just more of a voice cameo when the character of Danny was listening to that recording, and he can hear another priest tell the main priest that book is called the Book of the Dead. Don't open it or read it. It's literally from hell. That's actually Bruce Campbell doing a voice cameo. So that was cool because I knew it sounded familiar in theaters. But for anyone who doesn't know who Bruce Campbell is, he's the OG character of Evil Dead. He plays the character of Ash Williams, who's basically his character. He has the biggest plot armor in any horror movie history, and Ash Williams' character is basically to destroy anything that's evil. Now, Izzy, did you want to talk about a theory you had?
So here's my theory after finishing the movie and the little hints that they put throughout the movie. So I have a hunch that either the dad of the kids is Ash Williamson's, or he's the baby daddy of Beth. And the only reason that I say that is because at the very end, they do a close-up scene of the car keys, and it's a picture of all the kids and the mom, and then the dad's there, but he has a hand in front of his face. So the only thing I'm thinking of, why would they tease that if it wasn't Ash Williamson's or someone we would have recognized from the other movies?
Yeah, I mean, like, I could kind of see it, but we'll have to see if other people believe it. Like, for me, I'm kind of 50-50 on that theory. Just because, like, I do want the character of Ash Williams to return to this franchise eventually. But as a movie on its own with new characters, they did really good. The mom was probably the MVP of this movie, even though the mom was basically a demon this entire movie.
Yeah, I really like the mom's character. I think one of, like, the most iconic scenes that I remember is the door scene with the daughter and how her smile just kept getting creepier and creepier as soon as the perspective kept changing in the door lens.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say it, I did not expect them to kill off pretty much the whole family in this movie. They people died left and right like nothing. Even side characters were just there to die, and it didn't even bother me. It's just more the fact about how most of these people died, or just like how batshit crazy this story was. And so I would say, and even Bruce Campbell gave it 2 thumbs up, and he gave his blessing, and he straight up said, I love this movie. And so when Bruce Campbell gives you his blessing along with Sam Raimi, you know you got a good ass movie on your hand.
Oh yeah, especially I think he was a new director too of the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah, and I think he collaborated with Sam Raimi on some stuff.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that they actually cared about this movie. All right, now we're going to get into our positives, mixed, and negatives of this movie. All right, now for our first positive is the opening scene. Ladies and gentlemen, that opening scene was fucking insane. It was crazy. Like, I did not think, like, it opened like a typical Evil Dead movie, but when that possessed girl ripped off the scalp off of her friend, and you see brain coming out, oh, it's so gnarly, but it's so cool because it's CGI but practical effects.
Yeah, it was gnarly. And then you see the droid, not droid.
The
drone. And I'm just like, I kind of wish we got more pictures of what it did to their face.
Yeah, because the drone, you know, it was nasty when a drone was carving into that possessed girl's face. But I think the coolest shot was literally in the beginning of the movie when we see the possessed friend rising out of the water and the title card behind her saying Evil Dead Rise. Yeah. That's such a badass shot. I even looked at Izzy and I told her, oh yeah, this is on our positive list easily.
Yeah.
And even if people in the theaters, people next to us were saying, dude, that's badass. So yeah, great opening. It really sets the tone of this movie. And because you think it's literally just going to be like all the other Evil Dead movies minus Army of Darkness, it's just going to be a Cabin in the Wood movie. But no, they do a lot. They do a lot of different stuff in this movie. And the opening scene kind of sets that tone.
Yeah.
All right. And now moving on to our second positive, and we mentioned it earlier, the mom. This mom was I don't want to say a beast, but she was scary as hell. I think she would get Pennywise a run for her money.
Oh, for sure.
Dude, she would give a lot of these slashers a run for their money. She, like, when she comes out of the bathtub and says, Mommy's with the maggots now. And it's so sad because in the beginning of this movie, you literally see this mom is so sweet. She's so loving and she loves her kids because when that earthquake happens in Los Angeles, and like the kids tell their mom, like, hey, we dropped the pizza. And you see the mom tell her kids, oh, that's just, you guys are worth more than pizza. That is so sweet. And so when she finally gets possessed, when they open up the Necronomicon book, you're just like, aw. And throughout this, that actress, I don't know her name, that actress does a good job because she's sweet and she turns it up a notch when she becomes possessed. Like, it's literally an on and off switch for a light.
Oh, yeah. Her character, the way she played the possessed demon, oh my god, she played it so well. And I will agree about the whole mom thing. It was really heartbreaking to see her. Because she uses that to manipulate the kids, as we will talk about later in this episode. But it's just like, imagine if your mom did that.
Oh, I love you, Mom, but it's some BS for to happen like that. I'm sorry. I'm getting a cross and everything. I am not opening that door. I will. No. I don't give a crap. I know better. But yeah, the mom, easily the MVP of this movie. And I think she's going to be up there with a lot of horror movie villains.
Oh, yeah.
And now, speaking of which, onto our third positive, the carnage candy in this movie. Now, I want to say this. My favorite kill in this movie was the hallway scene in the apartments. The possessed mom is locked outside, and she kills one of the neighbors by ripping out his throat and chews out his eyeballs. And then she spits it at the kid's mouth, and that kid suffocates because of the eyeball. Like, she's ripping out, the fact that we see her ripping out throats, biting people's eyes out, and she gets her leg blown off, and she's still coming after you. Like, you can stab her, gut her, everything. Nah, she kept coming for you. And then, the practical, just the blood and goriness of this movie. And in the end, when all the Deadites formed to create like that spider-like creature, was just so disgusting.
It's so nasty. And also, this movie has a lot of like jabbing and like, if you don't like seeing things shoved through body parts, this is not the movie for you.
Yeah, like when what's this one of the sisters' name? Rebecca? No.
Bridget.
Bridget, yeah. When Bridget is stabbing her brother Danny when she becomes possessed, you see the impact. It's like the Scream movies. Like, I like this, like, when it comes to the Scream movies, I get a little, when it comes to the stabbing, because it's like you can feel it and see, and you see it and almost feel it. You know, another scene I liked was when Bridget was drinking water and all of a sudden she's puking out blood and maggots, and I'm like, oh, that's so disgusting. And then the ending where Beth finally puts that spider-like deadite inside the wood chipper, and you see like guts, blood, and teeth just flying all over the place.
And she uses a saw to like jab it through the mom's head to make sure it detaches.
Yeah, holy crap. This movie, when people said this movie was bloody and gory, they weren't lying.
It covers that base.
What would you say was your favorite kill?
I think my favorite kill was when, it wasn't necessarily a kill, but like Carnage Candy wise, is whenever the little sister Cassie uses her Stephanie to shove through Bridget's head.
Oh yeah, when she becomes a deadite, and it doesn't even kill her, but just that shot. And then when she slowly pulls it out, you hear all this crunchy and squeezy noise. And the fact that they have the balls to kill some kids in this movie, that's where you know, like, shit, this movie is serious. Like, anyone's gonna get dropped at any moment.
Oh yeah.
All right, and now for our fourth positive, and like we said in our spoiler-free first 6 minutes, because a lot of the Evil Dead movies, minus Army of Darkness, kind of just take place in the middle of the woods in a cabin. This one I thoroughly enjoyed. It took a page out of Scream 6's note, and it actually went to instead of the city of New York, it went to the city of LA. And so that's interesting to see that the Deadites and the Necronomicon book were in LA, invading this rundown apartment and just causing all types of chaos.
I think the new location really worked, especially since they went from a cabin to this brand new location. But they still made it creepy, saying that the building was going to run down and like not be there anymore. So there was still that aspect of like abandonment, but still being in the middle of this huge city.
Yeah, and like you can tell that the area that they're in, it's a wasteland. Yeah. So it's like they couldn't really get help. So in a way, it was still isolation. And I enjoy that, you know, because they said, oh, you know, like in the movie, like we heard, they kept saying, oh, we can go down this fire escape. Well, we can go through the apartment number 82. But it's like, yeah, even if we get out, where are we going to go? There's the nearest city or like police station is like pretty far away. And so you still get that feeling of isolation despite it being in the city of LA. So I do applaud the new relocation.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, and now moving on to our fifth positive, and we said it, the new cast does a good job of holding up the Evil Dead legacy. Like I said, does it suck that Bruce Campbell doesn't return as Ash Williams? Yes, but at the same time, it's nice to know that they're able to do new characters justice while being able to be an Evil Dead true to its roots.
Yeah, I think this cast did such a phenomenal job keeping up this movie's legacy. Even the side characters were great. Even though we didn't have a lot of time with them, the time we did have was really made you feel for them.
Yeah, and like when people were dying in this movie, you're just like, oh shit. You know, like I said, even the little kids, we see them for like maybe 30 seconds in one scene, and then when they die, you're just like, oh crap. Because as kids, you don't expect a lot of horror movies to kill kids off like that.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, this movie, despite it being really different from its predecessors, it still lives up to its Evil Dead legacy, and I love that. This is something that I would expect. This feels like as if Sam Raimi even made this movie.
I agree.
And I like that. And now, number 6 on our positive list, the horror atmosphere and pacing of this movie. Now, one of my things with a lot of horror movies is that sometimes they just don't know how to pace themselves and let us breathe in the moment and absorb what we just seen. No, this movie does a good job. Like we said, this movie is the most disturbing, horrific, bloodiest, and goriest movie in the franchise. and the most gothic atmosphere, and I like it. I really enjoy it. And the pacing so well. Like when we see characters die, we actually get to feel that emotion. We actually get to take that breather in. And even when the mom gets possessed, and when Bridget gets possessed, and Danny too, we're just like, crap, we feel bad.
It takes that time for the audience to like soak in what's happening. It's not fast paced. That is one thing I really love about this movie, is that I never felt rushed or I never felt it being slow. I felt like everything was going at a decent pace for me to process and understand what's happening, which I think helped the creep factor and the gore and everything, because you got to see the ending of what's happening. Like with with one of the scenes is when Bridget falls down and blood's just pouring out of her whenever she first gets possessed. And you just see the blood stain on the floor, and it like sits there for a few seconds so you understand what happened.
Yeah, and in this movie, when it comes to a scare factor, yes, there's jump scares, but then it does mostly some of these scenes, these scary scenes, they build up to them. I mean, and we're gonna get into our positive later, but yeah, no, they did a good job with like building up the fear in this movie.
Yeah.
And now down to our last positive, the marketing for this movie was good. Like me and Izzy talked about it in the car on the way home. The marketing for this movie, the trailers and everything, they did a good job of showing some scary scenes while also hiding the best ones too. And a lot of movie trailers today will spoil things like that.
Yeah, like it reminded me, because when Scream 6 came out, we only watched the teaser trailer.
The one where they're in the subway. That 30-second teaser, and we did not watch a single trailer after that. Another one. Yeah. We avoided it.
Which I am so glad we didn't, because I feel like we would have been spoiled on so much. So even though we did watch all the trailers for this movie, it just highlighted some of the best parts, but also still kept other better parts in the movie. And it, like the kids, for example, I had no clue that was going to happen from the trailers, and I'm so happy I didn't, because that excited me and like surprised me.
Because honestly, me and Izzy thought that this movie would be about the character of Beth, Cassie, Bridget, and Danny. It would just be about them fighting off the mom. But no, there's a lot of twists and turns, like, and it reflects the original Evil Dead so well, because Ash Williams was the sole survivor of that movie. And in this movie, it's only Beth and Cassie that live. You never expect the characters of Danny and Bridget to get possessed and die like that.
Yeah.
The mom, you knew she was going to die, but no, like you feel sad. And I'm glad the marketing didn't spoil any of those twists. Yeah. I'm glad we got to experience it firsthand.
Yep. And
now moving on to our mixed feelings. It's how they found the Necronomicon book. And now I get it. It makes more sense with the first two Evil Dead movies and the 2013 version, because it was in an isolated cabin in the middle of the woods. Okay, that one, fair enough. Maybe it was buried in a cabin. But as we see in the movie, the book was under this rundown apartment in a secret bank vault, and it's like, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, it kind of works with the Evil Dead lore, but at the same time, I wish we would have gotten a flashback scene of how it got there, or something at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think there needed to be more of a story there to make me, the audience, believe it a little bit more. Like, I kind of just went with it, but it was an odd choice per se.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up working in the end, but at the same time, I kept questioning to myself, like, how did the book get there?
Yeah.
Because the last time we see it, it was in that cabin in Evil Dead. And nobody touched it. It didn't move on or anything. And so I was kind of expecting like someone like Beth to accidentally bring the book back home.
Which would make total sense.
Yeah, and shit goes south. But yeah, that's our only mixed feeling. It wasn't really a huge bummer for us. And now we're moving on to our negatives, and it's only two. Our first negative is a character of Danny and Cassie making some dumb choices. Now, do you want to go with Danny, and I'll start with Cassie?
I can do Cassie. You can do Danny.
Okay, I'll do Danny. Okay, the character of Danny. I don't get why he would bring that book back with him. I get it. we're going to get into another negative, our last negative, when I'm going to talk about it. But he says that he wants to get more money for their mom. I get it. But with the way this book looks, any realistic person just would have thrown that bitch away or not even touch it, just left it alone. Or at least I like to think so.
Yeah.
And then he keeps making all these dumb decisions because he keeps going back to the book and listening to more things. It's like, dude, you're causing more mayhem than it needs to be because of what you did. You got Bridget possessed, you got yourself possessed, and you were getting all these people possessed because you kept wanting to read the book. And I don't want to blame him for a lot of people dying, but in a way, it was his fault.
Exactly. I'm like, if I would have saw that book and saw it only open because I dropped blood on it, I wouldn't even want to open it.
No, and then he, of course, like Evil Dead fashion, he plays a recording, and then the recording summons his demon, and then it starts with the mom, and it's like, yeah, you effed up really bad, dude.
Yeah, you did.
And now the character of Cassie, okay, I know this is a little girl, and I'm not going to be too harsh on her, but in the scene when they lock the mom outside the apartment in the hallway after she's brutally massacred all of her neighbors and little kids, she starts singing a lullaby, the Deadite.
Mm-hmm.
And in Evil Dead lore, a Deadite can look human again, of the original host. So it can trick you into thinking that it went away and that person's magically healed. Now, as we see in the movie, we still see that the mom Deadite looks messed up as hell and still talking in a little bit of a deep voice. And Cassie almost lets her in. That is so stupid. I wouldn't have minded if the Deadite mom actually reverted back to a human form, because I can believe that. Little kid. But even as a little kid, if you're seeing your mom still all bloodied up and talking in that demon voice a little bit and like saying, oh, your dad's here, blah, 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 and you can't see nothing, I'm sorry, I'm not opening up that door.
Yeah, it's a little sketch and like kind of stupid, but at the same time, she's a little kid, but still, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, I would have liked it if he stuck with the Evil Dead lore of a Deadite reverting back to a human form so it can trick you. And then that wouldn't be a negative.
Yeah,
she wouldn't be a negative. But yeah, that was the stupid scene to me because yeah, she wasn't able to get in, but you could have gotten yourself killed or someone else killed.
Yeah.
And now for our last negative, and holy crap, I just feel like this whole week of doing film reviews is his divorced parents. There's another subplot of this movie, as we see, where they keep mentioning that their dad left them, that the mom and dad divorced. And they act like it's going to lead into something bigger, but it never does. And I hate it. For me, if you're going to introduce a subplot, you have to make it worth it in the end.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of weird. They mentioned it in the beginning, and then like they would mention it throughout, but only just to move the plot forward with, oh, we need the money from this book or whatever. But it wasn't really like detrimental to anything else.
You see, and I can see your theory about Ash being their dad, possibly, but at the same time, it's like you can't. I hate when a movie wants to introduce a lot of subplots and never wants to pay them off.
Yeah.
And so that's their negative with it because it literally leads nowhere. People may think, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, I mean, if you keep mentioning it in the movie, it is kind of a big deal. I only felt like, it's like Izzy said, I only felt like they kept mentioning the dad divorcing part when they literally needed to make the story progress. And a movie shouldn't do that.
Yep.
So for any future filmmakers that listen to this, please do not introduce a subplot and have it lead nowhere because that is very stupid and it gets very irritating.
Yep.
All right, and that's going to do it for our review of Evil Dead Rise. It is a great addition to the Evil Dead franchise. Even if you've never seen any of the other ones, this is one that you can still enjoy as just maybe someone who's getting into the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah, still go watch it. Even for me who's new to the franchise, I felt even if I didn't watch any of the previous movies, I still would have really enjoyed this just because it's kind of a standalone, but it still connects with the Evil Dead lore.
It's that legacy. It does a good job, and it doesn't suffer from what a lot of requels suffer from.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's going to do it. Like I said, I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. Izzy?
I give it a 9.
All right. And that's all right. And as always, we appreciate anyone that listens and is a subscriber to our channel. Me and Izzy love you all. Take care of others. And as always, take care of yourselves. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace out, everyone.
Bye, guys.